All right, welcome back to the weekly Rotoworld basketball Q&A show. It is just me, Noah Rubin. Zach Hanshu is not joining me today. I know he and Raf held down the last one that we did, which was actually before Christmas. So it's been a few weeks since I've been on here, and a couple weeks since we've had this show. So since the last time we were here, just wanted to say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all other holidays in between, celebrating those as well. Hope everybody had a good holiday season. It was still busy for basketball, but it was busy outside of basketball for everybody as well, which is why we didn't have the show last week. But we are back now. So yeah, happy holidays to everyone. As questions are rolling in, I'm going to let a few come in before I get started talking or going through those. But it will just be me by myself today. We'll see how this goes because I haven't done one of these without a partner before. So we'll see. I might go get pretty long-winded, get off topic. That's what I tend to do when I don't have somebody to keep me in check. But hopefully it's all good information and we can make some good decisions that will help people win their fantasy basketball leagues. So we still have a long way to go before the end of the season. So before we get into that, I just wanted to kind of recap what I've been doing. I just kind of say I went to New York for Christmas and then was able to spend some good time with family, which is a lot of fun. But I'm re-energized, recharged, and ready to start off the new year strong, talking about some fantasy hoops. And I guess we will go ahead and get into some of these questions. So this first one here is from Black. Regular listener, regular question asker. Thank you all, as always, for asking questions. Makes this a lot easier for me. Hartenstein, a hold rest of season in New York, 12-team 9-cat head-to-head. So obviously things are a little bit different in New York now that they've made the trade to bring in OG Anunoby, Precious Achiuwa, and Malachi Flynn in exchange for RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley and Detroit's second-round pick this year, which is probably going to end up being pick 31 as of now, unless Detroit turns their season around. But it's been pretty rough going so far for them. So Hartenstein has been the starting center since Mitchell Robinson went down, and it still might be a little bit before Robinson is back. I don't remember the exact time off the top of my head, but it's a while. It's, I think, a couple more months. But when they brought in Achiuwa, it was kind of like, okay, this lines up exactly with Jericho Sims returning to the lineup. So what is this center rotation going to look like in New York? Well, we got a taste of it in the first game. Jericho Sims, DNP, coach's decision. He had been hurt, obviously, was moved into the starting lineup when Mitch Robinson went down, and Hartenstein still played more minutes off the bench, but was coming off the bench. And then Jericho Sims went down. Hartenstein moved into the starting lineup. But in the first game with everybody kind of there, everybody healthy, Hartenstein played 39 minutes. Precious Achiuwa played 8 minutes and 34 seconds, according to NBA.com. Hartenstein finished with 7 points, 9 boards, 3 assists, 3 steals, and 3 blocks. So that's excellent value, even if the scoring isn't great. It seems like he's finally in Tom Thibodeau's kind of favor, which once you're in for a good bit. Hopefully nothing changes there and he can stay in the starting lineup and continue to put up big numbers because, as you can see, and as we have seen the past few weeks, he's able to do that. So as long as he stays in the starting lineup, and I'm looking through the comments now, Brad Altman, another regular listener to the show, said Mitch Robbins out for the season. Mike Breen talked about it yesterday. So that definitely helps us get a better idea of what this is going to look like, because if Mitch Robinson doesn't even have the threat of coming back, then Hartenstein should be good to go the rest of the way. I'm going to pull up his numbers to see how he's been looking as far as actual 9-cat value in recent weeks. But just based off the numbers, like we can tell, like he's providing value. So over the past 2 weeks, he's 66th in 9-cat, according to Basketball Monster. 6.4 points, 8.7 rebounds, 3.1 assists, 1.6 steals, and a block. Obviously, the scoring numbers are very low, but Mitch Robinson wasn't a guy that was giving you many points anyway. So, yeah, excellent value. Definitely inflated a bit by the amount of defensive stats, because not very many players are capable of getting both while still providing solid percentages, decent assists from a center, good rebounds. So if you can deal without the points or you're in a punt points build, then yeah, great option for the rest of the season. I have him in a couple leagues, and I've been enjoying his production. I was able to get Mitch Robinson off the waiver wire after he initially went down, but I guess I can drop him out of my IR if he's going to be out the rest of the season. And then also, Happy New Year, Noah. Happy New Year to you as well. And another Happy New Year, Noah. Happy New Year to you as well. I've had enough and dropped Mark Williams, picked up Aaron Gordon. Wow. Yeah, it's really annoying. Mark Williams' situation has been incredibly annoying, just consistently listed as doubtful out, doubtful out, doubtful out. If they could give us a better timeline, that would be great. If they kind of said, hey, he's going to be out for 3 weeks and then we're going to reevaluate him. That'd be nice to know. It'd be helpful. And obviously, non-fantasy players or people that don't care as much about betting are going to say, well, why does it matter? There's a chance he plays and then he's not. And it's like, well, if they're going to let him give it a go and then figure out that he's not good to go, like it just doesn't make sense for it to have happened for 11 straight games, I believe it is now. So is there a better timeline on that? No, but he's going to continue to be listed as doubtful. Hopefully, if you're playing in a Yahoo league, you have IL plus, and that doesn't impact you all that much, and you're able to still have him in that spot, regardless of his status being flipped from doubtful to out every game, as opposed to a more restrictive IL that may not allow that if he's consistently doubtful then out. But yeah, dropping him is not the worst idea at this point because we don't really know how much longer he's going to be out. If he is dropped in your league and you're able to store him on an IL spot, I would have no problem adding him and letting him sit there because he's going to start when he's healthy. And hopefully at some point it'll be him and LaMelo back in the lineup for Charlotte. And they'll actually be not actually be fun to watch, but a little bit more fun to watch and have better fantasy production out of there. There's a few guys that are producing well, but adding in two guys that are two of their arguably two of their best players. That's what I'm trying to say. Would definitely do a lot for fantasy. As far as Aaron Gordon, I don't have an issue with adding him. He's not super exciting. The free throw percentage isn't ideal. He's a really, really good player. It's just sometimes that isn't replicated by 9-cap value. But if he is helping you in the categories that you need help in, great. He's not super exciting, but he's solid all around. Should I drop, this is also from Brian B, should I drop Pods and possibly pick up Nick Richards? Oof, yeah, it's kind of messy in Golden State. Kind of trying to see what that looks like. If I'm not mistaken, I'm trying to remember all the headlines off the top of my head. But in their last game, Pods moved to the bench with Chris Paul moving in the starting lineup, Trace Jackson Davis moving into the starting lineup at center. And Steve Kerr said that he was going to continue to roll with that starting unit moving forward and trying to see that. I can't remember if I'm mixing up my my headlines, and Steve Kerr said that before making that switch, but if I'm not mistaken, that's the way that went down. So Pods came off the bench, played 28 minutes, almost 29 minutes, still provided solid value despite coming off the bench. Obviously, Chris Paul played a larger role, but Pods is still going to be part of their rotation, even if he's coming off the bench. Like Klay Thompson hasn't been great as of late either. Even though he's off the bench, I still like Pods. I don't have an issue with picking up Nick Richards, though, because we just got done talking about Mark Williams, who knows how long he's going to be out. Richards is great for rebounds, blocks, and not hurting your field goal percentage. His field goal percentage is very high, but obviously he's not shooting the ball a ton, so he's not dramatically impacting that. But he is helping. So if you need the rebounds and blocks, go for Nick Richards, but Podziemski is still going to play a very large role for the Warriors moving forward, even if he is coming off the bench. So I'd probably prefer him, but it depends on what categories you're really looking for. If you need the blocks and rebounds, then I have no problem dropping him for Nick Richards. All right. You also managed to pick up IQ, so hopefully that'll be worth it. Yeah, I'd say that's worth it. That sounds like great. I'm very surprised he was on the waiver wire. He wasn't on the wire in any of my leagues because I was excited to add him. But yeah, he's going to be great. And we'll continue to talk about Quickley with Brad's question. Traded for Quickley in 2 leagues. Wow. One deal was Keldon and Drummond for IQ and the other Tobias for IQ. Foul trouble last night, but IQ looked fantastic in a starting role in Toronto. Tons of pace. Yeah. No, I'm very high on Quickley, especially now that he's a starter. Really liked him in New York but it just didn't ever really pan out for him to be a starter. And they liked him in the 6th man role. And if you're able to have a guy like that as your 6th man, then great. Like that makes sense. But yeah, having him as a starter, it should be fun to see how that develops in Toronto. I mean, we just saw he was at Kentucky with Tyrese Maxey, 2 explosive, athletic young guards. And Tyrese Maxey's kind of popped off this year in a larger role. We'll see if Quickley can even kind of sort of replicate that level of success. Even if it's not, 1st or 2nd round value like Maxey has provided, Quickley should still be much better in a larger role. So I'm excited to see how that pans out. Yes, he looked really good. Immediately started, which was encouraging. Him and Dennis Schroder they shared the floor a little bit, but both played 28, 29 minutes, like around there. So both should still be solid options, but I'm excited. I think this is a much better situation for Quickley than it was with the Knicks, mostly because he's starting, as everybody kind of was able to notice pretty quickly. But as far as the trades, one deal was Keldon and Drummond for IQ and the other Tobias for IQ. I like both of those. Tobias Harris has been actually, let me think about the Tobias one for a minute. But as far as trading Keldon Johnson and Andre Drummond to get Quickley, I don't mind that. Keldon Johnson he's had a couple good games coming off the bench since he moved there. And obviously Drummond has been, a beast since filling in as the starting center in place of Vooch. I don't know if there's really a timeline for as far as when Vucevic will be back. I can look that up as I'm talking about this. But when Vooch is back, Drummond's obviously going to lose all of his value. They're not going to move Vooch to the bench or start them together. So the initial timeline was 7 to 10 days, and that was on December 27th. So he should be back within a game or two. So yes, great job trading away Andre Drummond at the right time. And then I prefer Quickley over Keldon Johnson. I mean, Keldon Johnson's going to give you points, but he's kind of got that same fantasy impact as like your RJ Barrett, DeAndre Hunter type of player where, yes, they do more things on the court than just score, but as far as fantasy value, they kind of just provide points and can occasionally give you some threes. Keldon Johnson, I want to say he's been, let me look this up real quick, a better rebounder this year. Okay. It's not significantly better, but like an average rebounder, 6.3 per game. The assists are up 3.9 per game, but since just outside the top 100, I think Quickley has significantly higher upside. And a move to the bench isn't destroying any value that Keldon has, but it definitely limits it just for simply coming off the bench and having a fewer minutes. But as far as so I like that trade Quickley those two for Quickley. Tobias Harris has been really good this year. He's 53rd in 9-cat, according to Basketball Monster. Scoring has been up, especially since Joel Embiid went down. Kind of solid across the board, not great defensively. So that one's tough. I think that's kind of banking on Quickley getting the most upside out of this. Whereas Tobias Harris, doesn't dominate any individual category, but he's kind of been solid everywhere. So I think I might prefer Tobias Harris for the rest of the season in that situation, but we'll see. Quickley definitely has a chance of absolutely popping off for the Raptors. So I don't hate it. I think I would probably prefer Tobias in that situation, but definitely prefer Quickley over Keldon and Drummond. Do you think, this is another one from Brian B. Do you think Kobe White is worth dropping when LaVine comes back? Oof. I don't think he's worth dropping. I think maybe you give it a couple of games and kind of see what's happening and how that looks with LaVine in the mix. But yeah, you kind of have to imagine that the scoring is going to drop a little bit when LaVine is back in the rotation. But Kobe White's still going to start. But yeah, he's been phenomenal this year. I would imagine, because looking at their lineup, are they going to bump Alex Caruso to the bench and still have him play a large role? Are they going to kind of move DeMar DeRozan to power forward and put Patrick Williams to the bench? It's kind of hard to say exactly what they'll do since it's been so long since Zach LaVine was in the lineup, and a lot of things have changed. Like Patrick Williams has been better. They need to really just trade him because that would make things a lot easier on everybody. And I think that there's still a chance that happens in a little over a month, like 5 weeks till the trade deadline. So I don't think I'm dropping Kobe White. I'm probably going to stash him. If somebody drops him and I'm able to stash him off the waiver wire, then yeah, I'd probably add him, because if Zach LaVine coming back really impacts Kobe White's ability to score, then I'm assuming LaVine is traded at the deadline. If Chicago goes through another trade deadline and doesn't make any moves, oh my goodness, I'm sure like Bulls fans will be pissed, because they have 3 players that still have trade value and can, or excuse me, 4 players that are older that can still contribute to winning and help a contending team. And that's DeMar, LaVine, Caruso, and Vucevic. They can trade all 4 of those guys and get a lot back. But if they should have done that last year. So if they wait another year to try and do that, or wait till the summer, then frankly, it's just a bad move. So I expect at bare minimum one of those guys to have been traded at the trade deadline. I would assume more. So I don't think I'm dropping Kobe White. I'm probably just kind of expecting his value to take a little bit of a hit. And then by mid-February, it's going to come right back. This is from Clark Kent. Are Kobe White, Max Strus, Jalen Suggs, John Collins, Scoot Henderson, and Denny Avdija droppable to stream 9-cat 12-team head-to-head? Which one would you drop to stream? Off the top of my head, that's John Collins. And you just have to look back and just say, what a fall from grace it has been for the fantasy asset that is John Collins, or that was John Collins. His minutes are dropping as the season goes on. Last 2 weeks played 23.3 minutes per game. Last week played 20.7 minutes per game. He's not a bad basketball player. I will forever stand by that. He's a very good basketball player, but he has to be in a situation that is set up for him. And Utah is worse than Atlanta as far as what plays to his strengths. Like, he thrived with the Hawks when they had Alex Len at center, and he was able to run pick and rolls with Trae Young, and he was great. He was 7th in 9-cat during the 2019-2020 season. 7th. He's 131st right now, and only playing 4.5 fewer minutes per game than he did that season. The offense isn't designed for his strengths. His shot has just simply not been as good. He's been better this year from beyond the arc than he was last year in Atlanta, but it's still not nearly as good as it was when he was 7th in 9-cat. He was 58.3% from the floor, 40.1% from 3, and 80% from the free throw line. Yeah, he's just not the same player anymore. I have no issue dropping him to try and stream in somebody that has more upside. Kobe White, again, has been great. He's probably going to take a value hit when LaVine is back, but that's not enough for me to drop him. Max Strus has been awesome all year. He was bad in their last game, but for the most part, he's been really, really good. I like Jalen Suggs' upside too much for me to consider dropping him, and he's also been really good this year. Scoot is finally coming along. Slow start, but he's been much better over the past week or two, especially in a starting role. That could change a bit once they're kind of healthier, but they really haven't had a fully healthy rotation in a little while for most of the season, really, but especially over the past couple of weeks. So we'll see who is starting when him, Anthony Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, and Malcolm Brogdon are all healthy at the same time and kind of have their legs under them a bit, because Shaedon Sharpe came off the bench in his first game back in their last game. Anthony Simons is still out. So when he's back, then we'll see what that looks like for Scoop. But again, I think it's kind of a similar situation that by the trade deadline, I'd imagine that they make a move. Like, is that actually theirs is interesting because Simons is still very young. Shaden Sharp and Scoot Henderson aren't going anywhere. And Malcolm Brogdon, I think I was listening to the Blazers broadcast and they were talking about how he likes being there. He likes being a mentor. So do they not make any moves and nothing really happens at the trade deadline that opens up minutes? Maybe, but we've also seen them for the past 2 seasons tank harder than anybody has tanked before over the final couple weeks of the year, which is going to be Scoot's time to thrive. Like you are hearing it here first. Like Scoot is going to pop off the last like 2 weeks of the season, like at least. Like he's playing much better now, but the last 2 weeks of the season, they're going to have Simons, Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton, Malcolm Brogdon. Everybody's going to have an injury that has him out for the rest of the season, and Scoot's going to put up like 30 and 10 consistently. Incredibly inefficiently, but he's going to put it up consistently. And then Denny Avdija has been really good as well. So, yeah, I have no problem dropping John Collins. I think they kind of forced him into the rotation a lot early in the year just because they didn't give up much to get him, but they're paying him a lot and they're wanting to see what they have. I'm guessing to try and see what they can do for his trade value to flip him at the deadline. We'll see if that happens because he didn't do much to help his trade value and his contract is way too big for him to be able to really be moved easily unless he's helping them move another asset that isn't paid as much to bring in a bigger contract. But that doesn't seem like a move that they're going to be looking to do. So it's really interesting. I do truly believe John Collins can help impact winning, but nobody's going to want to, he's not going to make the impact that his contract suggests. So it might be a couple of years of him being on the, like a really bad contract before he's able to get paid less and maybe help a contender a little bit more. All right. Let's see. Black has Mark and LaMelo on his IL. Loving the Hornets' transparent reporting. Yeah, we're all quote unquote loving it. Brad said, "Love the hat." Thank you. I've had this probably close to 13-ish years. I don't remember exactly when I got it, but around then. So it kind of just sits in my closet and occasionally use it for podcasts. So it's great. Aaron Nesmith in the 12-team non-cat head-to-head conversation rest of the season. I like his 3-and-D profile, and he's starting for now. Carlisle hasn't been shy about lineup tweaks, though. Yeah, it's interesting that he hinted at some lineup changes and then finally made it. Bruce Brown has been out a little bit the past few, 5 games he's been out. 5 games for Bruce Brown. So yes, Nesmith has been starting. Past 2 weeks, 72nd in 9-cat per basketball monster. Over the course of the season, he's 95th. Think about 2 years ago when he was with the Celtics, playing 11 minutes per game, 468th in 9-cat. And then last year, first year with Indiana, he was kind of their starting power forward because they didn't have anybody that was truly a power forward. Despite him being 6'5", was top 200, and then now this series top 100. And been even better over the past couple weeks. I'd say he's definitely in the conversation for the rest of the season. It does kind of depend on if he continues to start. Like if Rick Carlisle moves him to the bench, then I think he's a fringe roster guy that I wouldn't have a problem dropping to stream somebody else. But as long as he's in the starting lineup, I'm definitely looking to keep him around. The threes have been great. Past 2 weeks, 3.3 per game, with also 1.7 steals and a block. There aren't too many players that are able to give you all 3 categories, like at least 1 per game. I want to say, because I remember writing about Jaden McDaniels and saying that there was only a handful of players, especially like non-superstars, that are able to give you at least 1 per game of each. So very unique skill set. So yeah, if you can deal with, he's not going to give you any rebounds or assists and the points are going to be okay. The free throw percentage has actually been pretty bad over the course of the season, but it's not really generally what he does. Last year's 83.8% from the line. This year's 68.8%. Very strange for a guy that's a very good shooter. But he only has taken 1.6 free throws per game this year, took 1.9 last year. Even if he's not shooting the free throws at a high percentage, he's not really hurting you all that much. So not that mad about it. I think he's definitely a guy that I would keep for the rest of the year. All right, let's see. And Brad brings up another good point. Quickley would have played 35 or more minutes last night if not for foul trouble. I was half keeping up with that game, so I guess I missed that part. But still, him at least playing and starting early, we'll see. Maybe that does hurt Schroder a little bit going forward. We'll see how that looks in their next game. But would you trade Strus and Henderson for MPJ? That's interesting. I think I'd rather be normally I'm a guy that's pretty against trading one player to get two, but I think I might be for that in this case, which isn't like me at all. But let's see. MPJ is 73rd in 9-cat this year, 16.3 points, 7.5 rebounds, 2.8 threes. Not really giving you much value in any other category. Strus has been averaging 13.8 points, 5.1 rebounds, 2.8 threes, and very similar. Not that the rebounds or points are great at that level, but mostly giving you threes. Is capable for going off at any game. His field goal percentage is down to 39.4% just because of not random, but like poor performances. That's what you expect when most of his shots are from beyond the arc. But he's capable of having big nights every once in a while, like kind of strangely productive nights. So I think the upside of Scoot is what really is the difference maker for me in this one, is that I think this would be kind of a buy low on Scoot as far as what he has given us in the past couple of weeks. The 9-cat value isn't great still because of the poor field goal percentage and the turnovers. So the last 2 weeks, he's shooting 37% from the floor and averaging 3.4 turnovers per game, but he's averaging 15.1 points, 5.9 assists. Past 2 weeks, that goes up to 20.3 points, 8 assists, 0.8 steals, 0.8 blocks, 2 threes. So he's starting to produce more of the counting stats, even if he's not efficient at all. But that's okay. Like, that's what rookie point guards do. They figure things out later in their first season. Like the past 3 games, let's say past 4 games, he's gone 17 points, 11 assists, then 25 points, then 22 points, 7 rebounds, 11 assists, and then 17.6 assists when the team only scored 88. They're a bad team. That's going to happen from time to time, where even if he was the leading scorer for his team, they didn't score much as a team, so he wasn't able to produce as much. But he's been really good over the last few games. I think this is probably the last chance to really get him before he kind of pops off a little bit. I think this is the kind of production that we should see moving forward. So if you can deal with a lack of efficiency, then I would have no problem getting Strus and Scoot, since neither of them are going to shoot a high percentage. But I understand wanting to get the guy who's the better player. I think my strategy generally is the 2-for-1. But I don't feel like, in my mind, MPJ is worth a 2-for-1 deal from 2 guys who can still contribute, even if their 9-cat value doesn't show that. So yeah, I'm pretty in the middle on that. I'd have no problem going either way, but I think personally I would give the edge to the Strus and Scoot one. All right, Mathurin, Fontecchio, or Chris Dunn for 12-team category stream this week. Let me look at what the schedule looks like for these teams before I say definitively, because if there's a games played edge, then maybe we can roll with that. But as far as just the individual players, Chris Dunn, I believe, has been starting, but he hasn't been playing a ton of minutes. Or at least that was the case in their last game, but I guess that was also a blowout. So Fontecchio played 29 minutes, scored 24 points, 6 boards, 2 assists, 2 steals. Chris Dunn played 20.5 minutes, still had 7 assists. He's been able to get a lot of assists. Okay, so the previous 3 games, he played 18 minutes, 19 minutes, and 19 minutes, despite starting. And Fontecchio has been starting lineup as well. And then Mathurin played really well in their last game. Who would I prefer? I need to actually, let me see. what their schedule looks like is if there is. All right, so Pacers played yesterday, still have 3 more games this week. Another one against the Bucks. Then they play the Hawks, which should be a really high-scoring game, and then a second night of a back-to-back against the Celtics. All of those games are at home. And then the Jazz, since both Chris Dunn and Fontecchio are on the Jazz. The Jazz they also have 3 games. They play against the Pistons, and then the Celtics and the 76ers on a back-to-back. I think I might go Mathurin because he played really well in their last game. Bruce Brown has been out. Andrew Nembhard exited early, which, Mathurin was also already having a good game before that happened. I don't imagine he'll move into the starting lineup if Nembhard remains out for Wednesday. Buddy Hield did in their last game, though he kind of didn't do anything. So I think I'm going to go Mathurin for this one. The matchup with the Hawks should be a really good opportunity. I mean, I don't remember what the exact over-under was the last time when these teams played, but they ended up destroying it, blowing out of the water, but it was like the record for the highest line set. It was like in the 150s or something like that they ended up each scoring. So, yeah, I think I'd go Mathurin. All right. Rest of the season, thoughts on Wendell Carter Jr.? It's kind of messy. Let me pull up the Magic stats because the exact minutes have been very wonky over their last couple games when Wendell has played. And I believe he even came off the bench for their last game. If my computer wants to operate, let me do this. Let's see. They played New Year's Eve against the Suns. Batadze started, played 22 minutes. Wendell came off the bench, played 24 minutes. And before that, believe missed the game. Before that, played 22 minutes. Before that, played 16. I think it's just something where they're going to have to bring him along kind of slowly. And as he logs more games, plays more minutes, he'll start kind of being the player that we were kind of hoping when we drafted him. Currently, he ranks 287th in 9-cat leagues, 25.1 minutes per game this year. Obviously, that has just been down recently because they've been easing him back in. But if we look at the beginning of the year, he played the first 5 games. The production wasn't great, but he played 27, 26, 35, 30, and 29 minutes across his first 5 games, and then was out for a month and a half and has played between 16 and 24 minutes in his 6 games since he's been back. The production has been even worse. He's still a talented player. I think if he was on the waiver wire and I had a player that I was fine dropping, then I'd add him. But he's not a must add to me. I don't know if he gets that ranking into the top 100. Maybe there's a point where he's playing like a top 100 player. But even last year, he was just outside the top 100, averaged 15.2 points, 8.7 boards, 1.4 threes, while playing 29.6 minutes per game. So I think really it's about how healthy is he and how well is he going to play now that he is like quote unquote healthy. And as he gets his legs back under him and plays more games, like will the production kind of increase? He was good in 24 minutes in their last game, 17 points, 5 boards, 2 assists, 3 threes while shooting 85.7% from the floor. So 6 of 7. I think he's got top 100 upside, but I don't think that the value will reflect that because it's already so bad as it is. He can improve it. But I think he's a guy that can play like a top 100 player, but also at the same time, he hasn't been doing that. So he's not a guy I'm like rushing to add just because he's on the waiver wire. He's not the kind of talent that it's like obvious. Okay, like he's just playing bad. He's definitely going to turn it around. And when he does, like he's going to make sure everybody knows because he's playing that well. I think he's a guy that I would add, but not super high. I'm not super excited about Wendell Carter Jr. And then we've got one from Sonic Pals. Tyler Herro, 3rd round player, rest of season. 3rd round's kind of high in my opinion, but he's been a 4th rounder this year. So maybe it's not that far off for him. I think a lot of it is he's been really good when he's on the floor, but the Heat have also dealt with just a number of injuries, which have opened up minutes and shot attempts. But I mean, he's going to start regardless. He's been playing the last few games. Jimmy Butler hasn't played much in the past couple weeks. I know because I have him in a fantasy league, an industry pickup that I also have Joel Embiid. It's been a lot of fun. But this year, best fantasy season of his career, best season of his career, but he did miss a nice chunk of games. But 23.4 points, 5.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 1.3 steals, 3.3 threes. All of those are career highs. He's shooting 45.6% from the field, which is also a career high. 34.5 minutes is not a career high. It's actually a little less than he played last year. So can he get to being a 3rd rounder? I think he has the talent to, but I don't know if the opportunity will allow for that. But it depends on how healthy they are. But because if Jimmy Butler's back, and I know he's kind of been in and out of the lineup recently, but if he's back and there consistently, I think that probably limits Herro's upside just a tad. I think top 50 is basically a guarantee. It's kind of what he has been so far. 3rd round, I don't really see him taking that step forward and like playing better to the point where he's allowed or able to provide 3rd round value. Brian B asked, when is Draymond coming back? Might take a flyer on him in my 10-team 9-cat head-to-head. Need his rebounds. I believe, let me check the player news on NBC Sports. To be sidelined 3 more weeks, which was middle of December. So I believe it's another week or so. I thought I saw a different headline that was saying it would only be a few more games. So let me see if I can track that down. I'm not seeing. I thought I saw one that was saying that he'd be back within a few games. Not seeing that right now. Everything about Draymond on Twitter or X, whatever you call it, is about him attending LeBron's birthday party. So that's not very helpful. So I assume it's a few games, but he's not really a guy that I'm looking to add, especially in a 10-team league. If you really need his rebounds, then that's fine. But he's only averaging 5.5 this year, which is his lowest since. As I'm looking back, it's definitely his lowest in the last few seasons. He's also only playing 25.1 minutes per game, which is his lowest in a while. So last time Draymond averaged fewer than 6 rebounds per game was his 2nd year in the league, literally a decade ago. So yes, Draymond can give you a slight boost in rebounds and also help you really in assists from the forward spot. That's probably his main appeal. But I'm not really interested in adding Draymond in a 10-team league. I think that there would be better options for rebounds on the waiver wire. But I don't necessarily hate it. I mean, if you could, I don't think he'll get suspended again. I would have to imagine that getting suspended twice, especially an indefinite suspension, is enough for him to kind of say, hey, I need to not get suspended again. Like a 3rd suspension in a single season would be insane. So I don't think that that'll happen because I would assume that he doesn't have more antics, basically. Maybe when it's in the playoffs and there's more pressure for him to not be suspended by the league, then maybe, but I don't really see that happening. I think Draymond is going to be good for the rest of the year, but still not a guy that I'm super interested in adding. Who is winning the championship this year, in your opinion? Who is? I can't see anybody being Boston. I think that they just have too much talent. Will it be impressive if somebody does? Like, it'll be, yes, like incredibly impressive just because of the amount of talent they have. Man, they're going to be a hard team to beat. So that's who I have, but we'll see. So much will change between now and then, and we'll see if they can actually finally get it done in the playoffs. Kuzma now on the trade block 2. If this is a fantasy Kuzma is available, then I would probably, I think I'd be okay with trying to get him. If this is a real life Kuzma's on the trade block now, then I wouldn't necessarily say that's surprising because he holds a good bit of value, isn't that young. And like if Washington's trying to go through a full rebuild, I think moving him would make sense. I don't know what that looks like or if it's possible. But if he's available in fantasy, his value is 127 this season, 9-cat leagues, Horned Basketball Monster, averaging 23.1 points, 6.2 boards, 4.3 assists, 2.5 threes. Those categories are great. Doesn't give you anything defensively, and he isn't very efficient. So he really only helps you in 4 categories. That's just how it was always kind of been for him. But with the Wizards, the tanking Wizards, allowed the chance to provide a lot of those. So I have no issue trading for him, but he's got to fit the build. Too early to ride Keyonte George. I'm wondering if he gets his starting gig back, and assuming the wing rotation thins out a little bit by trade deadline, silly season only or season long option. Utah's weird. They're very weird with their rotations because like everybody kind of wants, and I think thinks that Walker Kessler should be the starting center, but they've been kind of moving him in and out when he's healthy or when he's not. Keyonte George has not been able to play. Like his minutes have been limited not limited, but he's seen fewer minutes coming off the bench. He played a lot in their last game, but it was a blowout. He still played a lot the game before. It's been weird how they've started Colin Sexton and Chris Dunn, but still played Keyonte George and Jordan Clarkson more. Why Will Hardy doesn't just start the 5 players he's going to play the most, I don't know, but it's kind of what's happened. Keyonte George was great at providing assists earlier this year. He hasn't been able to like dish out quite as many dimes since he's returned from injury. But I still think he's a solid option. I think he's a guy that I would add if he is not like if he's sitting on the waiver wire. I would assume at some point he takes back over at starting point guard. It might be after the trade deadline. I don't really know. Like, what does the trade deadline look for the Jazz? Are they able to flip Colin Sexton and Chris Dunn, even Talen Horton-Tucker, and get picks or young guys back? I don't know. I don't think they trade Jordan Clarkson, but we'll see. Maybe that does happen. They seem to value what he brings to the team more than what they could get in a return in a trade. So we'll see. It's something to keep an eye on as the trade deadline approaches, as rumors kind of heat up. But I have no problem adding Keyonte George, especially if like that kind of makes sense for your team if you have the open spot for it. But other than that, you just kind of have to hope that he moves back into the starting lineup. He's been really inefficient. That kind of hurts his fantasy value. But again, that's just kind of what happens for rookie point guards. But when he started, the assists have been there. He's been scoring the ball really well since he returned from injury. He had one bad game, but last game he had 14. Game before he had 21. Last game before the injury, he scored 30, which was his career high. So it kind of stinks that kind of threw off his rhythm. But I'd assume as he plays more games, he's kind of in and out of the starting lineup. That's just kind of what they've done with Walker Kessler. But yeah, I think he's a guy that has value for the rest of the season, and that he should be added now before, I don't want to say before it's too late, but at some point he's going to bring that level of production back, and then it'll be much more costly to be able to get him on your team. But yeah, that's kind of what we got on Keyonte George. It's all of the questions I have right now. But if more come in, I'm happy to kind of go through them. Let me see if there's just any other news things, and maybe I can just start talking about those because we still have about 15 minutes left. Mark Williams once again listed as doubtful as a new headline. So I believe this will be 12 straight games that Mark Williams has been listed as doubtful. Maybe it's just 11. I think it's actually just 11. But yeah, Mark Williams probably isn't going to play, which is great. Nick Richards probably is. There's another one that Terry Rozier is probable to play tonight. I think it was Steve Clifford was initially saying that he didn't expect Terry Rozier to play in this game. He didn't play last night, and he kind of looked awful, is what Steve Clifford said. Like, he didn't look like he'd be ready to play. Apparently, he's feeling better, which is good to see because he's been really good with LaMelo out. I had Ish Smith as a pickup, or one of the pickups of the day, just because he started in their last game, was probably going to start again today, but doesn't seem like he will because Rozier will be back. So probably like he's not worth streaming at all at this point. Let's see. I really hope LaVine gets traded. I have both DeRozan and Kobe. I would say, Brian, that yes, I hope LaVine gets traded too, but I also kind of hope DeRozan gets traded. I have no rooting interest there, but I just think it makes sense to the team, and I want to see competitive teams make good decisions and do the right thing. But yes, I think that trading either one of them would do wonders for Kobe White. He's already been really good this year. He's just going to probably take another leap in his production. I don't know. Like, the trades are weird though, because I don't know what those trades would look like. Goodness. Yeah, it's kind of messy. The contracts aren't ideal for a trade to be made. So I held Big Ragu in first game with New York rotation was promising. Thoughts on Big Ragu rest of the season? Who is Big Ragu? Am I totally just missing something? Who is Big Ragu? I don't know who that is a nickname for. I'm trying to look through their roster now, and now I'm kind of wondering who Dante, is it Dante DiVincenzo? If it's Dante DiVincenzo, then okay. Yeah, no, it's Dante DiVincenzo. Interesting. I hadn't heard that one before. Great. I like that nickname. I hadn't heard that one, but played 25 minutes, which, I think his minutes were kind of down a little bit when like previously, like he was starting, but he was only playing like 20 minutes per game. Moving off Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett, obviously OG can just kind of fill RJ's minutes, but they also moved off Quickley, which definitely opens up minutes for Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, and Quentin Grimes to kind of collectively fill. But it seems like it was mostly Josh Hart and DiVincenzo that played a few extra minutes. So yeah, I think that he's a hold for the rest of the season. I think Josh Hart will probably be like the sixth man that plays more, and he's the fifth starter that kind of gets bummed out a little bit just because they do have a little bit more depth. But he's still going to provide plenty of threes. He's more than capable of just going off and hitting like 5 or 6 threes in a game. He had 2 in their first game with OG in the rotation. Obviously had a really big game in that last game in between the OG arriving and RJ and Quickley leaving. And he was still able to get a steal and a block, 4 boards, 2 assists. So yeah, I think that he's got, I don't want to say top 100 value the rest of the season, but I think he has top 100 upside for the rest of the season. For the course of the year, he's 118th. Last 2 weeks, he's actually 41st, but I think a lot of that comes from his 38.7 three-pointer game. But I think if he can hover around 25, 26 minutes per game, then fringe top 100 upside. I mean, past 2 months, he's 99th in 21.5 minutes per game. So have to think that in 25 minutes per game, he can be significantly better than that. But we'll see what he can do consistently. I think he's definitely a guy to hold on to and does benefit from that trade, even if it kind of goes under the radar a little bit. And can't even give Hanshu credit on that one, unfortunately. Yeah, he would have loved that. He probably would have known that immediately. So it's good to see that Zach is still in our hearts, even though he is not on the show today. I was about to make it really dramatic and say not with us here today, but Zach is alive. Let me just clarify that. Zach is alive. So I'm sure he would appreciate hearing about the Big Ragu. Is Hayward a drop? is Gordon Hayward a drop? So he's 137th this year, 250th over the past 2 weeks, but hasn't really played all that much, missed the last 3 games. I wouldn't say he's a drop, but I think he's a guy that I'm totally fine trying to move off of at this point, maybe including him in a 2-for-1 deal to bring in a better player, like if he is a needle mover for somebody. But I don't know if he's just a flat out drop just because he was really good before he kind of, he's missed 5 of the last 8 games, the last 3 in a row. Before that played 3 and before that missed 2. But before that, he was really good. Had a stretch, scored at least 20 in, I believe, 6 straight games, still providing value kind of across the board a bit. These two talented to drop, but I'm definitely totally open to just trading him. Like I said, either 2-for-1 deal or trading him for somebody else, just in a 1-for-1. Not a guy that I'm super excited about, and also has his fair share of injury history, especially since he kind of joined the Hornets. Obviously, before that as well, kind of since he left Utah, wasn't uber healthy in Boston. But yeah, I mean, I didn't even remember. Maybe I had seen it, but his wife calling out Charlotte's medical team for their lack of honesty and trying to make him play through an injury that was more severe than they gave him credit, or not gave him credit, but kind of said it was. So we'll see. The injuries are messy in Charlotte. They're probably, I'd say that they're the worst in the league about reporting everything based on kind of what we're able to observe. So yeah, I have no issue moving off of Hayward. If you need to drop him to stream somebody else, that's fine. But I would probably look to trade just because when he's healthy, he's still very productive. I think you touched on it, but the point guard timeshare in Toronto going to be all right as far as holding Schroder. It seems like it. Brad made a good point about Quickley being in a little bit of foul trouble, and I believe he did have 5 fouls in that game. Let me make sure I'm not just totally making that up. Excuse me, he only had 4, but he's still only able to play 28 minutes. Schroder played almost 30 and was pretty productive, considering he was coming off the bench, 12 points, 3 boards, 8 assists, and a 3. The assist is obviously where he's going to provide his value. So if you need the boost in assists, it may not be quite as consistent because he's not starting, but he had already kind of lost his starting job prior to this, but has still been providing assists consistently and playing big minutes. So the last game, which was the one in between OG leaving and Quickley and RJ arriving, 9 assists off the bench before that. And that was starting. 30 points, 9 assists. Game before that, 15 points, 9 assists. Game before that, just 28 minutes, 9 points, 10 assists. Game before that, 11 points, 7 assists, 3 steals. So if you really need the assist boost, then I'm happy to keep him around. If you are punting assists, then there's no reason to keep him around. So it just depends on what you need help with in a category league. In a points league, I don't think that the upside's there for him to be worth rostering. But category leagues, you can get the assist boost. And let's see. See what his 9 cat value looks like during this stretch. So let's see. Last 2 weeks, 118th in 9 cat per basketball monster, 74th last week. But again, it's just assists. So he's a hold if you need the assists. He's not if you don't. But again, I think kind of like a Hayward, I'm probably going to look to trade him to somebody that needs assists before I just flat out drop him, just because what he provides in that category is very valuable. Let's see. He is 15th in the league in assists, and the players above him are all definitely rostered guys. Halliburton, Trey, Luka, Jokic kind of guys. Right above him is Cade Cunningham, Terry Rozier. And the guys below him are all guys that are definitely rostered, aside from Ben Simmons. But he's averaging 6.7 assists, sure, but who really cares? Because he's probably not going to play. like who knows when he's going to be back. But can I squeeze 3 out of Drummond this week? Weekly lock. Let me actually just do the math on this. It was last Wednesday that Vooch was expected to be out 7 to 10 days. Let me look, see if there's an official injury report that we can look at. He is officially out for tonight's game. So that's at least one game. And I would assume that there's a chance that he returns for the next one. So I can guarantee you one more game. After that, it was 7 to 10 days, which means between Wednesday and Saturday. And I believe they play on actually, I don't actually – let me see when they play again. They do play Wednesday. They play against the Knicks on Wednesday. I would imagine that if Vooch has been ruled out, this early for Tuesday's game, that he won't play the second night of a back-to-back. So I guess that you're getting that game as well. And let me see their schedule after that. They play the Hornets on Friday. And then they don't play again until they play the Hornets again on Monday. Oof. I think you can get 2 games for sure. That Friday game against Charlotte, I think it would be like a squeezing 3 games out of Drummond. Like you might barely be able to get it. But I think it might be Vooch could be back Friday. That's the only question. I think you definitely get the Tuesday, Wednesday game. The Friday one is more questionable, but considering they get 2 games off after that, maybe they just wait the extra 2 days. So we'll see. I think at least 2 games. Jalen Green, he's been up and down this season. Yeah, it's been very interesting to watch because when he's on, he's on. When he's off, he isn't really giving you anything. What game was that? I was watching the end of where he was just going off in the fourth quarter. They still lost, but he threw up a 3 at the end that was just entirely off balance. That was watching the end of that one was fun. I think that was the Philly game. Yeah, it was a Philly game. He's been scoring really well as of late. Last 3 games, at least 20 points and at least 5 threes in all of them. I might actually look to ride the hot hand a little bit here. He's not a guy that I'm super high on long term, like for Dynasty. But the upside's still there. The talent is there. So we'll kind of see what that happens. But it's probably going to be more inconsistent play that kind of goes up and down. We'll see how he does against the Nets on Wednesday. Hopefully he can keep it up. But like you said, up and down, and it's kind of hard to predict what's going to keep happening. Dropping Drummond when Ayton comes back, would you drop Eason or Trace Jackson-Davis to use a spot as a streamer? Oof, that sounds like a pretty good team you got there to be able to, or have to decide between both of them. Goodness, man. Because if Trace Jackson-Davis does stick in the starting lineup, I don't think I want to drop him, but I don't really want to drop Tari Eason either. But I think maybe I would drop Tari Eason just because Trace Jackson-Davis would be starting. He played 29 minutes as a starter in their last game. I don't know. I guess you have a couple more days to decide, but I would keep an eye on what Trace Jackson-Davis's production and minutes look like if he's, doing what he did in their last game, 29 minutes, 17 points, 6 boards, 2 assists, a steal. He didn't have a block, but we've seen him have a couple of solid performances where he gets you a bunch of blocks. Then I'd probably actually choose him. But if he's starting but the minutes aren't there or the production isn't there, then I think I would lean Tari Eason. But it's just kind of hard because Eason's coming off the bench. But I'd say Eason's far more talented and far more capable of providing fantasy value. But it's just kind of hard to say because he's in that bench role. So I'd keep an eye on the minutes and kind of see how those compare. All right, we made it through an hour, which, took a while. But hope everybody that asked questions got at least a good bit of information that was helpful. That's going to do it for this one. We will be back next Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern time. So bring more questions and we'll keep talking hoops. But thank you everyone so much for tuning in this week, and I will see you guys next time.